I'm just thinking, Dr. Idoko, perhaps in the context of your proactivity, which you suggested initially, would you subscribe to us building walls and fences?
Well, I think that would be enormous, more than we really need to do. But I think it's, if I should use the term over-security, the budgeting alone, we cannot even meet it. We don't fund the normal conventional security issues. How much more?
Can
building
you
fences?
Can you over-secure?
Well, yeah, sometimes you can over-secure when you do things. Yes, over-security. Sometimes when you do things that are out of this world, even the issue of Mexico and the U.S., you can see the debate going on in the Congress amongst the people that you shouldn't do that. No. Now they have even reduced it to putting barbed wires there because the government said they cannot fund fencing. So I believe that proactivity also requires some inventiveness.
Such as? Such
as the recruitment of armed forces personnel. I think the training we have had so far, the quality is high, but I think we need to do more at the recruitment level. Instead of insisting on quota, let's recruit the brightest minds into our security personnel. If you look at the police force is nothing to write home about. Even the hierarchy is a problem, not to talk of the rank and file. So the same applies to the military. So let's start from there. Recruitment is one proactive inventiveness. The other one, if you talk about the service chiefs, for instance, there's an outcry that it should be rejigged, that those who had served out their term should be removed, and new people brought in to inject some new blood into that group. That has not happened. Then,
but if that happens, is there a guarantee that anything will change?
Yeah, it's possible because you have new initiatives, people who have different visions.
Should we be dealing in the realm of possibility or specificity?
Yeah, it's also part of specificity. If you bring in bright minds, people who don't have interest, but who have national stake, they may do things differently.
Hold on. When you talk about these changes here, are you also considering where you started from? You made a statement about principle, security principle.
Yes.
Is that principle right? Is it what it ought to be? Before you talk about the recruit, because if the base is not properly done, what are you building on?
Yes, that was why I pointed out the issue that we need to get our principles right. Until we do that, we are not going to go anywhere.
So if the principle is not right, then why would you be talking about recruiting? No,
recruitment is also part of the principles. I'm saying that adopting a different approach in recruitment, recruiting bright minds, people who you do not recruit based on where they come from, but based on their contributions. Like, we are no longer in the analog age. Today we are using more and more of technology. So we should have security infrastructure that is technology driven. And only such bright minds can actually fit in. So if we continue to apply things that don't fit into the modern way of doing things, we're not going to go far. Yeah. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Let me come to Komadali. I mean, you've been in Nigerian security agency before, and you know the kind of criticisms lately going out to them. In fact, a lot of people are reacting such that the comment that was made by the Deputy Defense Information Chief, where he said some politicians actually sponsor perhaps herdsmen to cause crisis in communities, and they have challenged saying, no, that cannot be true. Could he be speaking from a position of privileged information? Could that be true? Or should he have said it when he did?
He's, from what I can read in the newspapers also, he's coming from a position of information. And if you look at the structure and hierarchy of the defense headquarters, is a high-level headquarters that deals with strategic defense issues, mainly of internal security and, of course, of external security. And for him to have said that, there must be some elements on the iota of truth. The sources of information available to the defense headquarters. I worked there. That was my last post at the defense headquarters before I retired from the armed forces. And I know that there's daily briefings, there are weekly briefings. Sources of information are both national and global. So if in fishing for information you pick 1 or 2, 3 politicians and he makes such an assertion, well, like I said, everybody
didn't name names.
Should provide the proof, the onus of proof.
Everybody
lies with them. For those who have been found involved. I think that's the argument.
I don't think he named names there. When
he never named names, but all the reactions have been that he should provide the proof. In such a situation, you don't have to come out with proofs because, like I said, that this situation of insecurity now is caused by that complex of actors. Politicians are in this group, and that brings up the issue of recruitment. Well, they contribute to recruitment. They bring.
There are some practical cases, examples which we'll look at about the accusations leveled against the army themselves. But let's get Marco's question in.
Okay.
Marco.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear any of the gentlemen in the studio to weigh in on this one. This is the controversy that was raised by the Minister of State, the Minister of Defense, when he suggested that the anti-grazing law in states should be suspended. I mean, we saw the backlash that came off the back of that one. But we also heard him clarify later that he said it was just a suggestion. What was your take on the suggestion of the Minister of Defense that anti-grazing laws should be suspended?
Well, I think that statement was unguarded. Somebody of that stature in government shouldn't be making such a statement, because that is an erosion of the authority of the state in making laws for the protection of the people within the territory of that state. And he revised himself because he realized that that statement shouldn't have come from him. A state that made a law to protect its people made that law based on reasonable foundation, that the state was under threat, constant threat. Killings were going on, and these killings were attributed to herdsmen. Well, I don't want to use Fulani herdsmen, but that was what it was. And these herdsmen we used to see or know to carry sticks have now resorted to carrying arms to the caliber of AK-47 and causing mayhem across the country. And states decided in their own wisdom to make laws, anti-open grazing laws, because there have been suggestions in this country that there should be ranching, which is done all over the world. Why can't we do that? Why are we so different? So I think that that statement was unguarded, and he has retracted it by revising himself.